In this video, I'll give you some tips for post-lab 48, preparation of para-red and related azo dyes. In question number 1, you'll be reporting the masses of the aromatic amine and the coupling component that you used in the experiment, and also the mass of your product. And because you have quite a few choices for the aromatic amine and the coupling component, I'm also asking you to list the names of the ones that you chose to use, just so that I know what you picked. In question number 2, you'll be calculating your yield, starting by calculating the millimoles of the aromatic amine and the coupling component. If you need the molecular weights for these guys, they are in table 48.1, which is on page 393. Once you get these millimoles calculated, then you'll determine the limiting reactant. It's just the smaller of the millimoles. And then you'll use that to calculate the theoretical millimole of your product. The reaction that you are performing is on page 393, kind of. On page 393, they give the reaction for the synthesis of para-red, which you may or may not be choosing to synthesize. But whatever substance you are synthesizing, they all follow the same general reaction and they all have the same stoichiometry. So you can look at the para-red synthesis on page 393. Your reaction, whatever you performed, it has the same stoichiometry as that synthesis. Once you get the theoretical millimoles of your product, you will then calculate the theoretical mass. Now, this is going to be kind of tricky because you will need to calculate the molecular weight of your product. That's not going to be given to you anywhere in the textbook because there's a lot of different options of what your product could be. You are at some point asked to draw over here. Over here in question number 4, you're asked to draw the structure of the azo dye that you synthesized. So that's going to help you come up with the molecular weight. And I'll talk more about this when we get to problem 4. Now, one of the things that I do want to point out to you, you did, in this experiment, you did remove half of the material to dye the cloth, but I want you to calculate the theoretical mass as if you had not separated half of your material. So I want you to report the theoretical mass if you had precipitated everything as a solid product and you hadn't done the cloth dyeing experiment. And then from that, I want you to report the percent yield of your product from your mass and your theoretical mass. And because you took half of your product out, that means that a 50% yield is going to be the maximum that you could get here. And you might end up getting something a little bigger, like maybe you might be getting 55, because when you separated these two things, when you divided your material in half, you just eyeballed it. You didn't measure it out carefully. See, maybe you did, not a great job of dividing in half, and maybe you got a little bit more in one and a little less than the other, in which case maybe you get over 50%. But you should be getting something less than or pretty close to 50% yield. You are going to write down, describe the color of the cloth that you dyed. And then over here, again, come back to this question. We're going to draw the structure of your azo dye. So what I want you to do is use the equation on page, equations, it's a few. Use the balanced equations on page 393. Again, those equations are for para-red, but you just copy that format for whatever substance you chose to work with, and that's going to help you predict the product of the reaction. You could also use your textbook because we do talk about this reaction in your textbook. And then, last but not least, you are going to be making a flow diagram here in this spot, and this is totally up to you. There is no tips this time, but you can do it.